with Texas Children in Nature, and so we're excited to collaborate on this training this morning. So we're going to talk a little bit about how we as adults can support good, enriched play outdoors for children, whether that's for our own children, whether it's in a childcare environment or in a community play situation, but just what is our role as the adult when when observing and supervising children outdoors. So we'll talk a little bit through that. I did want to give you a little bit of background. Again, I'm Audrey. Green Space Learning has a Green Space Nature preschool here in Fort Worth, which most of the pictures today you will see are of that program. And then we just do training and consulting to support childhood, really. So the green in Green Space is more about the organic development of children and allowing children to grow and develop in their own way, as much as it is about nature or the environment. So, all right, so let's get to it. Our objectives today are to review a little bit the types of play and what the developmental benefits of play are, of which there are a limitless number, but we'll identify a few. What is our adult role in both creating and supporting the play environments, and then what are some practical strategies we can implement in order to both observe, guide, and extend play. And we can stop on any of these slides for conversations about the photos. I think that's an important part of observing children in play is to notice what we're seeing even in these still photographs as we go through. So I think we're a small enough group that if you want to unmute and ask a question or say something, that would be fine, unless Beth has specifically already said not to do that. No, she didn't. Okay. Or you can drop it in the chat, but um, let's just kind of reflect on this photo to begin with, and what do you see happening in this picture, or what speaks to you here?
Are those, is that just outdoor fabric that's tied around the trees?
Yes. And it said it's the children's design. They had some help in making sure that, in getting to the high spots or whatever, but Um, they tied it there, I don't know, 6 months ago, and it is going strong. So, and it gets a lot of wear and tear to it, but it's a favorite spot.
I think my first question just is thinking about like swings and licensing, honestly.
Yep.
Like I love this if if like, oh, that's something we could do to create that kind of movement
Hmm.
and also be, allowed to have this kind of unofficial swing. That feels super exciting.
Yep. This is a licensed child care center and TRS, and this seems to be the swing loophole. So always happy to share it. This is one of those, so many things about our outdoor environments are going to be, different people are going to react differently to them. So it'll come down to your licensing rep, but at the end of the day, this is not a swing. This is a child-directed activity. Exactly. Monica said this is, and there's a range of motion and the speed and the height from the ground are all well within safety, kind of expectations. So yeah, this is a great way to get that vestibular kind of feeling. It also provides kind of a nook, a place where children can really feel like nobody else can get to them and they can create kind of a cozy spot for themselves. Lots of great conversations happen, of course, in this area. And it's really removed from the rest of the playground in a way that other children don't gather around this space when there's not a swing available. So they really can kind of get some alone time. Good. right. So what comes to mind? What do you think of when you think of play? What memories and feelings come up for you?
I feel like it's a lot of like community. Like you just feel like you're just engaging with people that you enjoy, or by yourself, either way. But my favorite ones have always been with like a group of kids when I was younger.
Mhm. Freedom, Monica says, absolutely. When you think of play, when you think of your childhood, where do you picture yourself? It's almost all, yeah, Emily's exactly right. It's almost always outside. Our memories of childhood, swings, riding bicycles, our outdoor memories are always the most easily accessed for us when we think about our childhood. And so this is kind of why we start to say things like, well, kids don't spend as much time outside today as we did, or we were always outside, or we came in when the streetlights went on, or like it didn't matter about weather. Our memories of outdoor play are so big that they're almost disproportionate to the rest of our childhood. And the reason is because your brain has so much more stimulation outside, right? So when you're outside, you've got this full sensory impact, your vision, the sounds, the feelings, they're so intense that it just takes up more space in your brain. And so, in addition to that, of course, the kind of feelings of freedom and independence and autonomy and being on your own, all of those things lend themselves to these bigger memories. So we often think we spent more time outside than we even did, or we just kind of gloss over the hours we spent playing video games or, the normal stuff we did as children as well, because those outdoor memories are such a big impact, which is just good reasoning for why we want to get children outside when they're in our care, because we want these memories that we're making with them or that they're making in our spaces to offset any unpleasant memories that we can't control, right? So if we want to really capitalize on the time that children are spending in our programs, then being outside is a great way to do that. Um, it's it's helpful in kind of trauma response and thinking through getting those cortisol levels down, dopamine up, learning is enhanced. Lots of great benefits, of course, to just being outside, but it's also just fun. When you think back to your childhood, your fun memories, a lot of them happened. The first ones that come to mind anyway are outside. Once you start digging in, you can remember Barbies and Matchbox cars and trains and whatever else came, as part of important parts of your childhood. But keeping in mind as caregivers that these outdoor memories are gonna be big is a reason we need to spend time and energy thinking about what our outdoor space is and really capitalizing on the just brain space this memory is going to take up. There's not any sound in this, but as we watch it, we can kind of see the interactions that children are having outside. Oh, sorry, I clicked on my screen. Here we go. Notice their faces, the intensity that they're working, the trial and error, the language. The weird slow motion, but still, it's there. The curiosity, the focus, Thoughts or reactions? This one doesn't always play beautifully, so we'll stop right here for a second and just anything you noticed or have questions about before we move on?
My favorite part of that video is the baby playing in the sand.
Hmm. Yeah,
Because how many of us as educators would allow that?
I know.
I was thinking about that baby in the sand too, about how like that, like looking at it, I'm like, oh, it's really exciting, but I feel like that's an image a lot of people would feel really uncomfortable with.
Mhm.
What if the baby puts the sand in their mouth? What if I don't know, it gets in their eye? I don't know. I feel like I could sense all those worries and anxieties.
And yet, most people wouldn't hesitate to have their baby at the beach on vacation, or, I mean, like it's so true though that we very much have very compartmentalized ideas about what's appropriate or what risks are there, and there that's an important thing to think through because an infant can't um, really select that risk because they don't have the information. So the baby is they could get uncomfortable and it's not something they chose. Where as a 2 or 3 year old throwing sand up in the air, they know they're going to get it in their eye and they know it's going to be awful and they do plan to be upset about it, but they also know it's going to happen, right? And so an infant doesn't get to make that selection. So it's an important conversation to have with yourself about like what is, where is the line here? This infant, obviously was very comfortable, and intent on his surroundings and got there on his own. Nobody placed him in the sand in that position. So, I mean, I think those are things that are important things to remember. We always put a baby on their back, no matter their age. We lay them on their back because otherwise you're selecting for them a position and then they can move themselves to however they want to interact with the space. But yeah, it is a uncomfortable photo for a lot of people. And everyone survived that video with their vision intact and all those things. But yes, it's good to notice those things because those are the conversations we want to have.
I'm curious about there was one picture, it looked like a wall. Were those locks? I saw like a carabiner. What was that?
It's for infant and toddler spaces, and it's just like sensory. It's just like locks to unlock and lock, and yeah, just kind of fidgety, fine motor type things. And they're usually, we try and have the kind of things on there that children see us doing and want to have access to, like doorknobs and that sort of thing, so that they can kind of satisfy that curiosity. In this video, I don't know if I shared sound. You'll have to let me know if you can hear it. Can you hear it, Beth, or no? No. Okay. I don't think I shared sound, but that's okay. Um, I actually I'm gonna change that then because I want you to hear their language. This one has some really good language in it. I just have to click it a little different here. There we go.
I just made it.
And I
We made it. It's gathering. It's gathering. We're using materials from the sandbox. Oh, Waddle. I really want
Okay. Questions or thoughts? Did you notice any of the language in that video? If you could hear well. Somebody said it's gathering, about the water at some point. I know we're using materials from the sandbox, almost look like a line, like, like it was like so beautifully spoken, like a documentary. And what were they doing? We don't know. Right? What they're doing makes no sense to us. They're taking water that's already running downstream and pouring it further downstream. They're pumping water into a colander that's not going to hold water. They're carrying tiny, tiny containers of water all the way across the playground. They're filling a wheelbarrow with water. It's obviously cold outside. This wasn't like heat-induced water play. This was just an interaction with their environment, and it's not supposed to make sense to us. And no one was asking the adult for help or support or questions. Um, the only even time that someone looked at the teacher who was the camera person was, to mention that the materials were from the sandbox in case she was wondering. Um, but they just, were going about their business. And even amongst themselves, they were quiet. They were collaborating, they were sharing the space, but they weren't what we would typically call playing together, right? They were very much engaged in this cooperative work, but and sharing the space and sharing the materials from the sandbox and sharing the water pump and all of those things. But they were doing it in a way that shows that, first of all, they spend a lot of time together, but that they didn't have to, they were not concerned. I think that somebody mentioned freedom. Yeah, so much freedom. Um, Resilient, focused. These children are clearly very secure in their environment. They are not worried the teacher is about to correct them or ask them questions or redirect them or give them advice. They are clearly not like there's no rush to their play as though they're about to be asked to clean up and go inside. This is very much them immersed in this space. And so those are the kinds of things we want to look for when we're supporting play on the playground or outdoors is, what's the dynamic between the children? What's the pace at which they're moving? Are they really checking for a teacher or an adult? Are they feeling very autonomous? What's their territorial range? How far are they moving away from the adults and other children? Are they comfortable, kind of trying new things, even though those things are somewhat risky. So you notice the little girl standing on top of the pump box, and then she goes to step into the water sluice, which I'm pretty sure the reason the video ended right there is because the teacher needed to go stand close to her while she was, standing in the sluice, because there was some risk there. But she didn't hesitate to do it as though she didn't check for where the teacher was before she took that step, right? Those are the things that show you that the child is feeling very secure and safe in their space and less worried about getting in trouble, which is not so with that not taking up space in their brain, then they have more freedom to try and to fail and to ask for help if they need it. They're not trying to operate outside of the rules, so to speak. So just some things you can look for when you're with your children outside is are they telling you with their play that this is their work and they're not really worried about how you feel about it. I have invented a new way of doing my screen that I've never done before, so now I can't actually see the show anymore. I mean, you guys can still see the slides?
No, it has a gray square over it.
Yeah, I thought so too. Okay.
I'm not sure what that's about.
Clicked a button I've never clicked before, which was like return.
Okay.
So so we're just gonna
hit the
Start
magic button.
it. Never used it before. Here we go.
It's a bit better. There's still
Is,
some.
is it still weird? Okay.
That's better. It's readable.
Well, I want it to be more than readable.
Yeah.
How's that?
There it is.
Okay, excellent. Okay, good. So, play is, by just simple definition, a child doing what a child wants to do for as long as the child wants to do it. It is not conducive to adults defining. As adult brains, we are not really very good at understanding free and open play. We are product oriented, whereas children are process oriented. So, something that happens as you grow up, is that your brain gets really full of a lot of things, right? As you have more life, as you have more experiences, as you know more things, as you have more responsibilities, the brain gets busy. And the way that the brain can tolerate that is to get rid of things it doesn't need anymore. And so our brains are incredibly efficient, and so they use what they need, and then they don't really hang on to stuff. So that's why it's so hard to remember what it's like to not know something you know now. Like once you know something, it's the reality that you live in. And so that's one of the big challenges of teaching or working with young children, is because you have to let go of a lot of your own knowledge in order to meet them where they are. Our instincts are to protect them from making mistakes because that makes more efficient sense, to keep them from making mistakes or to show them a better way of doing thing. That's an adult brain thing to say there's a quicker, better, more successful route we could be taking here. The child brain doesn't want to know those things. It wants to meander and make mistakes and repeat things and just be super inefficient. That's its job. That's how actually it becomes the efficient brain we have in adulthood. You cannot circumvent that process by just kind of teaching children how to do it right the first time. It doesn't work the same way. So, when we see children at work, we are not usually thinking about it as play. Even in that video, there was a little boy sitting on a stump, very much solitary. Things are just happening around him. He's just sitting on the stump. That's play. Observation is play for young children. Watching other children play, watching the way the leaves move in the wind or the way the sun pattern plays on something, that being kind of lost in their environment, that's part of play. And so it doesn't even have to be them physically doing anything. It's just them doing what they want to be doing without direction. So they're making their own decisions. They're motivated by their own, whatever that internal motivation is. It might be fun. It might be curiosity. It might be conflict. Conflict is a form of play. Children intentionally engage in conflict with other children so that they can play their way out of it, so that they can practice this. All play is a form of practice for life, right? So when a child is immersed in the moment, they are at play. This is a child at play. Um, Her face is serious. It doesn't even look, you couldn't tell by her face if she's loving this activity or if she's frustrated by this activity, but she has definitely chosen it. This is actually a provocation that Beth put out, I think, for the children, and she put the sunflowers there as inspiration. But the first thing a child did was paint one of the sunflowers. And so unexpected use of materials, we couldn't have predicted that because none of us would have walked up to this table and taken a sunflower from the arrangement and painted the actual sunflower. Not something an adult could predict, but we have to just kind of be ready to observe and notice and not correct and change. Children need far more time in unstructured play than they need in structured play. I don't think we really needed Peter Gray to tell us that, but we appreciate him doing the research. So children spend most of their time in structured play. Structured play is anything that has defined limits that's guided and led by an adult. So sports would be a structured play. um, some types of like anything that they're almost anything they're doing with rules and an outcome. So, for example, my son, he's 7, he loves Lego. So that's what he wants to do most of the time. The part of Lego where he's building the structure based on the instructions, that's structured play. All the things that happen after that is unstructured because now he's an imaginative play with the thing he built. And so that goes on for hours and hours and hours, and that's the unstructured part. So structured play is not a bad thing. It's just that it is, needs to be a small portion of the play experience. We wouldn't want to take away the thing he just built, put it on a shelf, and bring him another one to build. That would be keeping him in structured play rather than allowing him to then tear this thing apart, rebuild it, use it for whatever. That's where the child-led piece comes in. And our adult brain is super offended most of the time by that type, unstructured type of play. We want to know, why are you putting water in this barrel? What is your plan? What are you going to do? That's probably enough water. Are we wasting this water? Our adult brain is going to think of all of those things, and it should just do so quietly. The child doesn't need to be worried about the adult play experience. They got lots going on themselves. I just took this picture this week, actually. I was really pleased with the water droplets that are spraying in the air and how nicely it turned out. But it's, this is an infant that was just she's mobile but not walking. And a walking child brought this bucket with both of these bowls in it with a little bit of water in it from all the way across the playground in this wagon from the mud kitchen over here. And and then did whatever they were going to do and then abandoned it, whatever. But she's sitting right next to it, and she just began to just really explore the materials and find out what was in there. And she was splashing the water, and it was so cool to watch. She did the same things over and over and over again because that repetitive nature of play is part of that scientific process of experimentation and repeating the experiment multiple times so that you can really secure in your brain the predictable results of that play or that particular experiment. So splashing the water down, and she would get it in her eye, and then she would, be surprised by that, and then do it over and over again. There's also some preciousness in the background there with Jonathan and his little glasses, so it is. I sat there, and took the photo. And she looked at me a few times to be like, "Did you see this? This splashed me right in the face." But she clearly did not want my interaction. She didn't need me to talk to her about it or remind her of anything. Just interested in what she was learning from using from having that kind of access to water in that way, which is probably not something, outside of a caregiving ritual that an infant gets very often. There's lots of different types of play that take place at our schools. There's adult-led play, there's instructive play, and then there's free play, which kind of has a bad rap. And even though named free play sounds a little like nobody's, like the adult didn't do anything today, like it feels a bit feral. Um, but you can definitely interchange it with child-led play. It's the same as free play. So if free play is offending folks or making it seem like nobody's doing enough work, then child-led play. And really the difference in those types of play, structured and unstructured, is that for unstructured play, the adult work comes before the child enters the environment. There's still lots of work that has to be done in preparing the environment and making it ready for the child. And in structured play, the adult is working during the play experience. So we're having to sit and talk and do and all those things during the play experience. We're leading. So the amount of work is really, I think, there's still a lot of adult responsibility to engaging in these types of play. It just looks different. So there's a million different types of play, but I um, just kind of picked a few to drill down on a little bit. Of course, physical play is evident in all of these photos and videos. Everybody's using their bodies. It's really hard to not use your body. So that's always happening. Your fine motor skills are always engaged. Your, core muscles, all of those things. As long as a child is moving, and then it's physical play. But some play gets really physical, like jumping off the stumps, or climbing the trees, or doing the balance bike, um, or standing on top of the pump box and pumping that pump. That's big work. And so those things build coordination, of course, and strength. Probably most importantly, they build body confidence. We want a child's relationship with their body to be one of to be a healthy one, to be like, this is a body that does great things for me. Like, because of this body, I can do these things and do them well. And so we want them to push the boundaries. We want them to feel confident in themselves. Some kind of rules of thumb around physical play and our role in physical play is to, first of all, we never comment on people's bodies ever. So in any capacity. So even to say you're really strong, or you're really fast. Those children love to be, told how fast they are. You can certainly support their own opinions about themselves, but we don't need to offer those things. We can just say, I noticed that you are running. Like, that's enough for a child to just notice, for us to just notice that they are running, or I noticed how you climbed that tree. We don't have to comment on whether or not they did it good or bad or different or whatever. We just are noticing the things that they're interested in. The other thing is, we don't want to coach children. We don't want to tell them how to go about climbing the tree, or how to go about climbing down from the tree. We are going to leave it up to them to trust their bodies and their ideas. And so the human body is actually really good at staying alive. It's its primary goal. So it is very careful about what it can do and what it can't do, except in adolescence. All of that falls apart during adolescence. But when the brain takes a detour there. But but during early childhood in particular, survival is very important. And so if they only do what their body tells them they can do, they will be safe. Children get injured when they are being coached, like in a sport, when the expectations for what they're about to do exceed their or become more important than just what their body wants them to do. When there's been an intervention by another child or adult, they will become injured. When they're placed in a high space by someone rather than getting into it themselves. So, or when monkey bars are involved. So those are the situations where children become injured. So if we let them do what they think they can do, and then when they can no longer do it, they say, get me down, we just get them down. We don't tell them if they got themselves up there, they can get themselves down. We don't say, just try this, that, and the other. We just get them down. And they're going to go right back up, and then we're going to get them down. And then eventually they're not going to need us to get them down anymore. So our role during risky or big body play is to observe, to be very close, to not say be careful, to not coach, but just to sit in our own anxiety and keep it to ourselves. We don't need to share our anxiety with the child. So we're there, we're close, we're ready to help, we're ready to support. And if they need help, we immediately render aid. We don't expect them to be able to manage that themselves.
Can I ask some more about that? Just because that feels so different than kind of the way we think about it at our center. I mean, we very much are like, if they get up there, we just support them. Like if they're just like if they're upset, that's different. But like if they're up there and they're just waiting, like and someone else wants to climb and they're trying to figure out how to get down, I really try to provide a lot of space for that, and then
For
kind of
sure.
and coaching to think about like, oh, I'm wondering where your feet could go. I'm wondering like how did they get there? How did you get into that spot? Can we move back down the same way? Or if there's another child there who'd done it successfully, I encourage them to ask that friend, how did they do it? And you're saying like not just to get them down or
If they ask for
yeah.
help, get them down. If they say, "Can you get me down?" then you get them down. If they're just taking a long time to think about it, then they are doing their work. And you're right. You would just give them the time and space to do that. Um,
I mean,
and
I'm
you'll
almost like sometimes they do ask to get down and sometimes I mean like I said, if they're panicked, I feel it's very, very different. But sometimes I feel like there's that like, oh, this is hard now. And I don't like, I think like kind of pushing them out of that comfort zone. But I have 4 and 5 year olds. So, you
Mhm.
know, I'm
Yeah.
often thinking, I'm thinking a lot about how a lot of them will be like, as soon as it got hard, they don't want to do it anymore.
Hmm. Yeah. And I think that that is a real concern for this age and for in general, we're so intolerant of discomfort in this day and age that children
Yeah.
really haven't had much time to be bored or frustrated or aggravated or do things that they're not good at. So I think read your children, you know them best. But we don't want to, when a child legitimately says, I am scared or I want to get down or
Okay.
I can't
Okay.
do it, then we help them. The rest of
Right,
the
right.
time we
We're
observe.
not making them feel abandoned. Okay. I just was
Right.
like clear. I was
Right.
like, okay,
Yeah.
I think listening to the child is what you're saying.
Listen to the child and do what they need you to do. And so if
Yeah.
they are just like, ugh, I don't want to get down, then, we might say, okay, well, I'll get you down this time and then kind of let them take that from there. If it's about if you're feeling rushed because a child wants to get up and they can't until this child gets down, then focus on the child that's having to wait rather than the child that's up
Yeah.
there. So instead be like, I know they're really thinking, what do you think they're thinking about? Or what do like kind of, I mean, like focus on that child that will help you refocus to being patient rather than feeling, because our anxiety levels are just, their their baseline is high. And so when we feel like other people are uncomfortable, we're really conditioned to be even more anxious. So I think you're doing it the right way. Yep. Um, Imaginative play, of course, is, it's unstoppable. Children are engaged in imaginative play pretty much 90% of the time. And so that's where they're developing creativity, empathy. This is where our desire to read comes from, is from pretend play. Because in pretend play, we are focused on things outside of ourselves. We're pretending to be someone else. We're pretending to do something we're not actually able to do. And that interest in other things is all that keeps us reading, because reading is always about other things. So we can teach the mechanics of reading, um, but we won't develop readers unless they've had time to spend in imaginative, creative play. That is the kind of precursor to being a reader or a writer. So giving them lots of time for imaginative play, they're gonna engage in it all the time. And sometimes their imaginative play is uncomfortable to us. Their imaginative play characters have a lot of conflict. There might be violence involved. They might have, be talking about pirates or things that we might think, well, that's, criminal person or whatever. I don't know. We might have all kinds of opinions about it. And sometimes it's like, I just remember overhearing some children in preschool once, deciding that, the which character was going to be a doctor because he was a boy. And I'm just like, got to intervene. And before I could even like do it, they handled it themselves. Somebody's like, my mom's a doctor. And they're like, oh, okay, great. And they all move on, right? So, but there's certain things we overhear or we notice during pretend play that we want to intervene with. And I think it's always important to remember that the adult brain has no imaginative playability. It is really bad at it. So, I mean, like, it looks really different than kids. So it's fine as long as we're engaged in happy imaginative play. We can do that all day long. But when imaginative play becomes uncomfortable, our adult brain is the best option here is just to get out of it. It's pretend, we can just abandon it. And the child brain's not going to do that. So just kind of keeping that in mind when children are engaged in imaginative play, that directing that play for them is almost never going to satisfy whatever need they're meeting through their imaginative play. Of course, social play is where we learn to care about others, to cooperate, to get our voices heard, to express our own opinions, to problem solve, to get good at reading the room. All of those things are a big piece of it. This is basically what separates us from AI. So it's so important that children spend time with other children running the full gamut of social situations, whether those are pleasant or unpleasant. They need all of that practice. We've talked a little bit about risky play already, but it's so important to learn resilience. Children, they get hurt and they shut it down, and or they get their feelings hurt and they want you to fix it. We want them to learn that that's disappointing, but I can get over it. I can move past it. I think I'm watching the time, Beth, I see. But I'm thinking of when we first opened the first location of the preschool, the playground had stickers and we could not get rid of them. We did all the things, but we just had little sticker burrs. And we really wanted children to do barefoot play if they wanted to. And so we were just like, look, guys, there's stickers. They're going to get in your feet. They're going to hurt. You can decide if you want to keep your shoes on so you don't get stickers. Great. If you are really want your shoes off, just know you might get a sticker. And if you get a sticker, you're going to pull it out. You're going to put it in this bucket. 2 weeks, it was just bloodbath, right? Just screaming and crying, just the world ending because stickers were on my feet and this is awful. But after they got used to it, that they would just pluck those stickers out of their feet and put them in the bucket. That's resilience. Resilience is I'm going to face some discomfort, but it's worth it for what I want to do, and I will be okay. And so that kind of, we didn't plan that to be a big resilience lesson. We're just really trying to get rid of those stickers. And we did eventually get rid of them. But it was so fascinating to watch children know the risk and choose it because they wanted the payoff of being barefoot. Everything is sensory play, lots of sensory play happening in this video or in this photo, but focused attention, regulation, curiosity, trying different things. We have no idea what outcome they're working from. We are lab assistants. We are not the scientist. So they ask the questions. We document their findings. We get them the materials they need. That's our job. So we don't have to fully understand what's going on. I think these are all from this last week. We found a lizard. There's a tiny lizard in my hand in this one photo. And then that little girl, Sage, adopted the lizard and she carried it around, until it was dead, as happens with tiny lizards. But and then they did put it in this, they made a habitat for it and put it in this habitat. This other photo, the teacher's pointing to a frog. So I think this, our role is to point out things the children might miss. And if they're interested in it, to roll with it with them. If they're not interested, to let it go. And I am, it's too bad that the tiny lizard didn't survive the day. But, the priority is the child's experience. And we did talk through that. Like, well, there's a tiny thing and you're a big thing. It can't handle all of this being played with. And we did that through the whole experience. Be gentle, pet with one finger, all of those things. It still happened. But that's part of interacting with nature. That's the lesson learned. I remember my daughter when she was just like 2 or 3 stepped on a snail on purpose. And she still will not talk about it to this day. If you're like, remember when you stepped on that snail? She'd be like, I don't want to talk about it. But it was in her brain was compelling her to find out what happens if you step on a snail shell, and she found out and she didn't like it, and she's never stepped on one since. But that's part of being with nature, is kind of working through those uncomfortable moments and figuring out how life works. The frog was bigger and it did manage to escape the day. And nobody really wanted to hold the frog. I had to hold it. Okay. A lot of words on this slide, but this is kind of just a summary of some of the things we've been talking about. Your first job is to create a yes environment, an environment that feels safe and interesting and engaging to children. It's very confusing to children when we build a childcare center or a park for them and their parents bring them there and leave them there with us, and then we tell them all day that they're in danger, right? Be careful, don't do that, be careful, be careful. This is a distrustful thing. So that we're saying we designed this space for you, but also you're probably going to get hurt and your parent left you here. That really undermines and erodes the trust the child has in adults and the world. So if we create a space for them, it's safe and they're able to interact with it. So a yes environment. Prepare for play. This is not a thing that just happens. There is lots of behind the scenes stuff the adult has to do, gathering materials, designing the space so that the children can have enough space to do the activities they want, have the materials that they need to do it. They need to have the materials enhanced and rotated so that we can kind of keep scaffolding their play to the next level. But if you just leave a nature space without planning, then all you get is injuries. So, you have to really think about what is out there to engage because children are compelled to learn. And if there's nothing interesting for them to do, then they'll just learn what happens if they throw the shovel, right? Or whatever. So they have to have materials that make sense and that there's something to do with that material. Use descriptive and observational language. Don't say random things like be careful. Don't quiz children like what color is that or how many birds do you see or whatever. That's just not authentic communication. So if that's what they're talking about, then absolutely engage with them, but don't interrupt real work to talk about numbers and colors and letters. Allow them to work through their problems and to solve their own problems. Outside is a really safe place to do that. Model curiosity. Show that you are also very interested in what's going on in the world around you. Stay busy. If you're in a nature playground, there's work to be done. There's watering to be done. There's raking to be done. There's restoring to be done. Be doing those things without calling attention to it, just kind of modeling to children like what caretaking of our environment looks like. And they will take over that work if they see you doing it joyfully. I mean, not, you don't have to sell it, but it's not something you're like, somebody needs to come water this. You just start doing it and just get engaged, and the children will take that work over. Don't interrupt them when they're playing. Interrupting people is rude. So if they're playing, don't interrupt them. Don't ask them a question. Don't check their pants. Don't just, don't interrupt them if they're into something unless they have asked you to engage, then you have not been invited. And restoring is an all day, never stopping thing. Especially if you're a toddler teacher, then your job is to restore the environment all day. It is not to teach children to restore. They're going to learn that and get that responsibility as they age, just like the rest of us did. But when we're working with young children, we are restoring the whole day. Otherwise, the environment gets away from us and it's too much for children to restore on their own. So if we're just kind of picking up and cleaning up, and if you spend all day outside, there's trash out there, there's bits of paper, there's, just kind of keeping busy, restoring as you go, will help the children, first of all, be able to restore because it's a manageable amount, because you've been doing it as we go. But it also just kind of models and demonstrates that this is part of the rhythm of play. Okay, I think we have covered a lot. We've already done this slide. It's about not praising, just saying I noticed. Don't quiz, extend the vocabulary, observe first, don't interrupt. We've already talked about all of these things, so I'm not rushing through it. It's just kind of repetitive. And some kiddos doing some tree climbing that took them years on that same playground to reach these levels. I love this photo because they're all going about it differently. I know that it took them years on this playground to get to this level. And just the intensity and the risk taking is just really cool to see. And then just some words here to think about the benefits of being outside. When I'm big, I'll know how to problem solve, communicate, keep myself safe, manage stress, create, try again, reimagine. navigate relationships, be independent, relax, find simple joys, and dream up big ideas because I played outside when I was little. Questions or thoughts?
I had a question about like how do you like navigate like conflict with kids, in a way that's like, going to allow them to like learn how to like, communicate with their peers and stuff, but like, would you step in and like how would you like go about that, once it gets to a level like maybe like they try to hit each other and stuff like that?
Mhm. Yeah, so only get engaged, of course, if they've asked you for your help or someone is going to become injured. And I like to use the word injured, not hurt, because life hurts, but injured we got to prevent. So yes, if they are feeling like they want your help, then the best way to engage to begin with is what we call sports casting. So that is just to say what you see happening. It looks like you're wanting a toy that he has, and or it looks like that you're both wanting to do this at the same time, or you're wanting this and he's got it, and that's making you sad. So there's some sports casting, and that works really great on toddlers as well because they just want somebody to identify their feeling for them. If there's preschoolers involved, fours, fives, and you want to get into some real problem solving, then I would use the high scope method, which you can find some YouTube videos about that, the high scope conflict resolution method. I don't show them in training because they're so long and so boring, because that's what conflict resolution is. It's long and it's boring. So don't do it unless you have to, and everybody's engaged in the outcome. So most children are like, knock it over, smack the other kid, go about their business. You're not going to get involved in that situation. That situation is already resolved. But if two people are like really like, we both want this and we are struggling to stay with it, then that's when you can go in and say, okay, you tell me what you need, you tell me what you need, help them create a solution, then help them implement it. But I would say that 9 times out of 10, they don't need us.
Mm.
And we just have to kind of be close and be ready, but not intervene. And if we do, the first thing we want to do is just say what we see without judgment or choosing a side. If they're old enough, let them choose. If it's a toddler running around just like smacking people, then you're just going to put your hand in front of them and you're going to say, I'm not going to let you hit other friends. We're not judging them for doing it because hitting is something children do at that age. They can't help it, but we're just still going to keep it from, it's my job to keep you safe. I'm going to keep you safe. I'm going to keep your friends safe. I'm not going to let you do that. And it's as simple as that. You don't have to go into how it hurts or any of those things. It's just, we're done with this.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions, thoughts? Okay, well, thank you for being here today. Thank you, Audrey, so much for your time and expertise. It's as always a lot to learn and a lot to think about. I did put a survey in the chat. If you would please complete that for me. And then in a couple weeks, we'll get this link out to you so you can rewatch. It'll be on our YouTube channel. It'll also be in the Pathfinder resources. So feel free to review and make referrals out for this one. Um, I think that is it for today. And I appreciate you all being here again. So till
Thank you
next
very much for
time.
having me.
You're welcome. Thank you.
You.
All right. Have a good Saturday.